It's COP29, and that means talking about complicated and difficult climate issues. You might feel like you need a dictionary to understand what's happening, so let's break it all down. Firstly, COP. It stands for Conference of the Parties, and it refers to the annual summit, where world leaders and other parties get together to talk about climate change solutions and how to fight global warming. Here's most of my decisive turning point. The Paris Agreement. This is the benchmark for much of what is discussed each year at COP, and it refers to a 2015 treaty signed in Paris, where countries agreed to try to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. NCQGT, it stands for New Collective Quantified Goal of Climate Finance. That's a long way of describing an annual target for the amount of money developed nations need to put in to fund climate effort. Loss and damage is a term that you'll hear a lot, and most of the time it will be used to refer to a loss and damage fund. That money will be used to help poorer countries deal with the effects of climate disasters. The money comes from the more developed countries, and the conversation this year will be around how that money is spent. And net zero, this doesn't mean releasing zero carbon into the atmosphere. It means making sure that any carbon that is released is offset by schemes such as planting trees or finding ways to capture carbon before it's released. Another acronym you'll hear a lot is the UNFCCC. That stands for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Comes from a treaty that was signed back in 1992 by nearly 200 countries and commits them to fighting climate change. Next, NDC, which stands for Nationally Determined Contribution. It's each country's plan under the Paris Agreement for how they're going to reduce emissions. It's really important that countries submit their NDCs through the COP summit so that you can judge whether they've been successful, said they were going to do. And this year, COP29 is being hosted by Azerbaijan, and we will be bringing you all the important highlights, so stay tuned. But first, let's hear what NASA astronaut has to say.
Greetings from the International Space Station. I'm NASA astronaut Sunny Williams, along with my NASA crewmate Nick Hague.
When we look down on the Earth from 260 miles above, it's clear how interconnected we all are. We orbit the Earth every 90 minutes and can see how our planet is changing, from increased extreme weather like hurricanes to shrinking glaciers and increased wildfires. Through instruments on the space station and our fleet of Earth-observing satellites, NASA and our partners are observing our planet and the effects of climate change and making our data free to the world.
Our missions help gather information about rising seas, greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, global surface temperatures, the warming ocean, deforestation, and plant and animal life in a way that you can only see from space. It is vitally important that the world accelerates its efforts to address the climate crisis in this critical decade. On behalf of our international crew, thank you to Azerbaijan and everyone in COP29 for your efforts to protect the beauty, wonder, and diversity of our home planet.